YouTube, hello, watch, enjoy. We're talking Big 12 today, and Brandon was right.
Brandon does a lot of victory laps, and well deserved, Brandon. Like, comment,
Like,
share.
subscribe, comment, enjoy.
Who's going to win the Big
Comment
12?
Brandon was right.
Hello, and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness. Casey, tell them about the drink and hurry up because I got some things to say.
I know Brandon has some things to say, so if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this podcast, if you're not, go subscribe on YouTube. Pop open an ice cold high noon because, folks, we are in for some entertainment today. High noon, I've got the pool packs in front of me, the lime, the guava, the kiwi, the peach. We've got the tequila in the office. I noticed a huge shipment of the big boy cans, the tall cans, the peach and the pineapple. They're all over this New York City office. If you're listening and you don't know where to find High Noon, I think that you've just never paid attention to anything. But in case you don't know, go to Drizly, go to your local convenience store, your local liquor store, highnoonsunsips.com. Grab some High Noon. The pool pack is limited, so we've only got a few weeks left of summer. The tailgate pack will be coming, all the original flavors. Go get yourself
I think the game day pack.
game day pack. Wasn't it tailgate last year?
Yes.
Okay, game day
Game
pack.
day pack,
All these
September.
names. All I know is they're all delicious. They're all delicious. The vodka, the tequila. Now, listen up. Pop open that High Noon right now, and may I give the floor to one Brandon Walker. Sir.
All right, we started this podcast in 2019. First of all, on today's show, we're going to talk about the Big 12 and preview the Big 12. Everybody ready for the Big 12?
Yep.
Previewing the Big 12, just like last week we did the ACC. So if you missed that, go back and listen.
Yeah, Thursday we'll do the Pac-12, and then I am going to be in person on Monday, and we're probably going to do two episodes. We're going to record two episodes, so we're going to save the Big Ten and the SEC for them. Okay. All right. We started this podcast in 2019. Does anybody remember a take that I shared religiously from the beginning of the podcast? Jack, do you remember?
I still remember the first time we brought up Blindside and you said I've never seen it, and I was in shock. And then I realized, wait a second, I'm being an idiot. But yes, I remember.
Not only have I never seen it, I promised I would never see it. And anybody who did see it is a bad person. Nobody in my family is ever allowed to watch it. And now, today, I don't know, 4 years after we started the podcast, but I was saying it long before then. The Blind Side has always been a work of fiction. It's always been a lie. There's always been bullshit. And if you watch it, you're a bad person. Correct?
Yep.
I believe half of that. I don't believe you're a bad person if you like the entertainment, but you know what? Go off, King.
No. You're a shitty person if you've ever even watched The Blind Side. Michael Oher, who was the subject of The Blind Side, who was the five-star offensive tackle who didn't know what a bed was. I never have one of those. What's that? Your own room? No, a bed. Shut up! He knows what a bed is. Oh, anyway, today, Michael Oher, it came out in Memphis court. He's going after those classic, incredible pieces of shit, the Tuohys, alleging that the Tuohys had him sign a conservatorship, allowing them to have access to all of his money from the movie to make money off his name. They got all the proceeds from the movie. Their kids got proceeds from the movie. Michael Oher didn't get anything. So not only is the original story that a five-star offensive tackle happened to go to Ole Miss after happening to get adopted by these rich white people, that whole story is false and a facade and a lie. Now we learned that not only was it a lie, they were actually stealing from him too, allegedly. Time comes once in a man's life where he just realizes that everything he's ever said has been right. I've had a lot of those moments, but today has been particularly one of those Brandon was right days. There's nobody that sees college football the way I see it. There's nobody as smart as I am when it comes to college football, and there's nobody who tells the truth as much as I do. So I will open the floor right now to Casey, to Jack, to Katie, to allow all of you to give me my flowers and tell me how right I was this entire time.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm impressed. The second I saw the news, I said, and I tweeted out from our account, Mississippi State fans have been telling y'all this whole time. And I will say you're the face of Mississippi State. So that when I say Mississippi State fans, you are Mississippi State fans. You are Mississippi State.
Well, I'm the face of college football, Jack, and that's fine. I can wear that. I have big shoulders. And I, as the face of college football, saw that a wrong was happening, and it happened to Michael Oher, and I just felt the need to tell everybody, hey, listen, all these fake bullshit stories from Oxford are fake bullshit, and don't fall for them. And let's not sit here, okay? Let's not sit here and just come down on the Tuohys and say, oh, if this alleged stuff actually happened, they're ridiculous, dirty-ass thieves. Let's not just say that. Let's also point the finger around this movie, okay? Because Sandra Bullock, you know you didn't deserve that Oscar. You know that acting was bullshit, all right? Sandra Bullock, no. Brandon Walker's talking today, face of college football. Sandra Bullock, you walked your ass up on that stage at those Oscars and took that trophy knowing good and damn well you didn't deserve it. That was a bullshit performance, and you know it. Secondly, no, there will be time for questions later, Casey. Secondly, how about Michael Lewis? How about the guy who was a friend of Tuohy's back in the day who just happened to write a glowing book about the Tuohys and signing Michael Oher and going to Ole Miss, and oh my goodness, then they made it in a movie and Michael Lewis got rich off of it. How about that guy? What did he know? That's what I want to know. How about Hugh Freeze, by the way? Hugh Freeze, who was the head coach of Briarcrest back when Michael Oher played there, 3 weeks after Michael Oher signed with Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze was hired by Ole Miss. What a coincidence. So he got his start in college football because of this guy. I don't know if there's ever been a more used guy in college football history. I really don't. He got used by the family. He got used by the school. He got used by the coaches. He got used by Michael Lewis. He just got used by everybody. Now he wants his money back. I hope he gets it. Now, continue.
No, I agree with most of your points there, except for the Sandra Bullock part, because as I've said when we've had this argument, don't you slander her. She didn't do anything. And that movie, while it is all a lie, is still an entertaining movie. So I'm not.
No, it's not.
It is. It's a Disney movie.
No.
Or not Disney, but it's a Disney type movie.
No.
Is it Disney? No.
No. Stop.
It's still an entertaining movie. Okay, here. No. Listen to me very
carefully.
carefully.
It's a horror story.
It's
a lie.
Okay, here's the thing. I can separate them, right? So Michael Oher deserves every single penny. By the way, the fact that the 4 of them were splitting it and saying the 5 of them were splitting it. How did we just now figure this out in 2023? I do not understand that part. I don't understand all the legal parts.
I haven't said this part, but in the article, the ESPN article, it says that Michael Oher figured out at some point recently that the Tuohys told him they adopted him in 2004. But what they really had him sign was a conservatorship to give them rights to his name and his likeness and future money. They legitimately, if true, have this guy sign a paper giving them the rights to all of his money and to all of things that they make on his name. Like, forget Ole Miss, all right? That's funny in games and all that. If this is true, the Tuohys are 2 of the biggest pieces of shit in America. Well, they're just awful people.
They're awful people because especially if you read his story and coming out today, that it was like when he was 18 years old and he was told it was the same thing as adoption and it's a kid who doesn't have a family. Like, that's awful. Like, point blank awful, bad people if this is all true. I don't understand how we're just figuring this out this long afterwards.
No, it was discussed in the ESPN article. So in
February he found out.
He found out in February 2023. You are right. Why hasn't this been discussed before?
If he's not making any money off of The Blind Side, how has he not known that until now?
I wouldn't be surprised if he thought that there just wasn't any money to be made. He was just like...
Well, he was also making football money for so long that
he didn't even think about it.
He probably wasn't seeing all the money come in. The money would just be there.
And then he saw, and then he learned, hey, the Tuohys made a decent chunk of change off that. And he was like, wait a second, what about me? And then he probably hired a lawyer. The lawyer looked into it, and then the lawyer found out, oh, wait a second, you have a conservator. Right. You have a conservatorship. And he's like, wait, I thought I was adopted. They were like, no. Conservatorship, which is the whole Free Britney thing and whatnot. Now, I will say, just on the record, we do have to see what the Tuohys say about this. But
right, listen, hey, none of this is proven. None of it's proven.
But this was a 14-page document submitted into court in somewhere in Tennessee, just outside Memphis, I believe, and it's damning stuff, damning evidence.
It's not great.
I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to sit here and let these other journalists and everything come squat on my take either. Dan Wolken tweeted out oh, actually, with my Memphis ties, I heard this a long time ago. Well, you didn't say anything, Dan. All right, you didn't say anything, and your little 5'4" looking ass sitting over there in Atlanta, not writing about college football, you little motherfucker. Okay, I'm the one that said this was bullshit from the start. Brandon Walker's the guy that was on this.
You did
asshole.
say that. that was a great.
Yep.
But
what?
the movie is still entertaining. And I realize it's bad now. I realize that what they were doing to Michael Orr was horrible. It doesn't mean the movie is bad.
I'll end the podcast right now.
No, you won't. We got to preview the Big 12.
I will leave you. We'll divorce today.
No, we won't.
I will walk away from Unnecessary Roughness. We will divorce if you say that movie's entertaining one more time. That movie is horse shit, was always horse shit.
I would like to point out
propaganda piece.
In my new found chapter of motherhood,
Wow.
I sat here and I said in my head, in a very slow progressing thought process that was really fast, years ago I would have said it just to piss you off, just to see what you would have done. You know what I decided in my maturity? It's not worth it. It's not worth pissing Brandon off. It's not worth him divorcing us on this podcast because football is about to start, and I don't feel like dealing with the headache that you would be if I said that.
The Blind Side was rated 78 out of 100 by Jeff D. Lowe. And Ken Jack, 74 out of 100. It is both. It is Ken Jack's 1900th ranked movie, and Jeff D. Lowe's 1700th ranked movie of all time.
Oh, and don't think I don't notice Ben Mintz being quiet as hell.
Oh! Did you see what we're doing today? They put on the Tuies on the Barstool Radio.
Who's hosting Barstool Radio?
KFC, who knows nothing about this.
He came back for a second week? That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, SJ is on it right now. I have people texting me if something breaks.
What's he saying? He's probably saying...
Right now, the only quotes is, I love Mike at 16, I love him at 37, and I'll love him at 67. And then there's a very much out of context.
But I love that money, y'all.
I knew it was coming.
And that makes sense. And the kids they got how the Tui split it up was essentially who made this? Warner Brothers? Yep.
Yeah, it always
Warner
feels like
Brothers,
a Disney movie,
$1 million to the Tuies, and then 2.5% of self-directed fee, or not self-directed, like directed net proceeds. It made $300 million at the box office, so they probably made 2.5% of that is around $10 million or so. And then they split it up between the four of them.
Which is why I know that if Michael Orr just wasn't paying attention because he was making so much money in the NFL, fine. But at some point in the last 2 decades, when was the movie made? So decade.
2009.
So, okay, so a little bit more than a decade. At some point, I feel like I would step back and be like, this movie is a monster. This movie's everywhere. Sandra Bullock won an Academy Award for it. How am I not making any money?
Guess what? He probably trusted the people around him.
Yep.
Well, then his agents and lawyers should be involved in this too, because at some point I feel like he had to have been like, this movie's gigantic and it's all a lie. So where's my money?
He's always said that, though. He's always said that that there was some mythology is the wrong word, but some fakeness in the movie. Fictionalization, but he understood that. It's always said shit. That it was inspirational, that he allowed it.
That's why I'm so confused. I'm so like
Jeff D. Lowe ranked Replacements as a worse film than Blind Side.
Jeff D. Lowe is apparently, I've never listened to him about movies again. He should have never watched it, just like nobody else should watch it either. Anyway.
It is absolutely one of those movies now that regardless of how you
feel. I told y'all.
It's lost all of its luster because if you ever watch it again and you know not only how much of a bullshit story it was, which is fine because a lot of Hollywood movies are bullshit, but the fact that you know that he was allegedly at this point just getting robbed.
Did you see Cons?
An Oscar. She won an Oscar for going on the field and saying, hey, go block him.
It's not her fault. Of all the people you can point fingers at, of all people you can blame, don't you dare blame the queen, Sandra Bullock. She didn't know. She was handed a script by Warner Brothers and said, "Here's this story.
Okay?
Here's this story. Go out and do a good job." And she did.
An Oscar? Shit. Okay.
She did a good job.
Tim McGraw. I got beef with him.
Do you like Tim McGraw?
I got beef with him.
Was it?
No, Nick Saban was in it. Coach O was in it.
Phil
Fulmer was in it. Cons tweeted, this is a very brave tweet. I always enjoyed The Blind Side. I can honestly say I'll probably never watch it again now. Brave. Thank you, Cons.
Well, Cons likes to get to he likes to get to the pile of about three seconds after the tackle every time. Every time. Cons loves to pile on the tackle. Like, oh, look at me. Cons didn't know shit, okay? I told him years ago it was a horse shit movie, and I'm telling y'all now.
And they labeled you some dumb hick from Mississippi. He knows a thing or two.
There was always
Everybody
the element.
You just hate Ole Miss.
That's,
no, I know.
well,
It's not that I hate Ole Miss. It's that I know them. And everything out of there is fake and phony and bullshit. Everything they tell you about Oxford is fake and phony and bullshit. I mean, they were signing 5-star offensive linemen while they were playing the Confederate national anthem in the stands on the band. How'd they do that? Because they were getting the Tuohys to help them. That's how. And don't.
Oh boy.
No, no. He's not wrong about the Confederate national anthem.
Keep cooking.
I will say though. No, I can't say.
I mean, yeah, I know that we're under. We're under.
The song's kind of slaps.
Oh no.
I'm not saying
hey, we're under a new regime. You can say whatever you want.
You know what? Between Casey telling me that movie's still entertaining and you telling me the song kind of slaps, y'all just want me to leave. Y'all want me to go.
I haven't said shit.
Katie also did point out so that you can't see her today. It's fantastic because she's been rolling her eyes way more at you than normal.
Yeah. I'm also trying to listen to SJ's interview to see if there's anything we should talk about.
I mean, what does the kid who was
a
8 years old knew about? Like,
I'm
not saying you. I'm saying like, what?
It's not the dad?
No, it's SJ.
It's
Ben Mintz's little friend.
I think he follows me on Twitter.
He does. He follows. He's a big time stoolie. He's a guy. I like SJ Tuohy. I like him.
Yeah, no,
he obviously didn't know what was going on. He was like 5 years old. Whoever that kid is that played in the movie was good too.
Let me write down the takes. Casey says the movie's still entertaining.
No. The movie was entertaining until I knew that. Okay, no, it's
Jack's got Dixie on his
entertaining.
playlist, and he likes SJ Tuohy.
I do have.
I mean, Brandon.
I will say, Dixie comes on. That thing slap. Y'all can't tell me Dixie doesn't slap.
I'm not going to say it because if Brandon walks off this podcast, it's going to take a lot of kiss ass to try to get back, and he's in Chicago. Now, Brandon, Ben Mintz is now an employee of Barstool Sports again, now that Dave owns the company. I feel as though you should probably force him to say something somehow. I don't know how you can do that.
I mean,
you got to bait him. You got to bait him.
Force him to work yet, and I'm supposed to do it?
Right. Every once in a while, this podcast gets a gift, and I feel like this is, in the history of this podcast, it's one of the biggest ones.
You know, if I had a producer that was worth his salt, and Jack for the first half of this podcast, for the first couple of years, was a producer, my producer would go back and find clips of me saying this in 2019.
I will say, I don't know if we could find video from 2019. I don't know where it is.
I bet you there's a roughneck out there that'll find it for me.
Oh, definitely.
I can find.
I think that you've been saying it.
I can find you the exact episode. I can find the audio.
We've had this conversation so many times that there's definitely. I mean, I feel like even sitting in this setup, we've had this conversation. No. Like, I feel like it's been that recently that I feel like Brandon and I were sitting in these chairs and he brought up The Blind Side.
I have August 25th, 2021, just a quote. I've never seen The Blind Side as propaganda.
That was when Ower DM'd me.
Gotcha.
Remember when Michael Ower DM'd me and he's like, I like your style?
Yes.
Ooh, September 12th, 2019.
That was right after the episode that, that's probably when we recorded it, because the episode that I was discussing came out September 13th. From Unnecessary Roughness Blindside, there's a tweet on...
Oh, boy.
There's a tweet on September 12th, 2019, and the third topic for our Week 3 preview was B. Walker SEC, back before he was at BFW, rant on The Blind Side. So
I'm most excited to see what Brandon's haircut looked like on September the 12th, 2019.
Oh, no, there's not. I don't know where that video is.
Oh,
looked like I cut it with a weed eater.
You can find the audio for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, because we weren't doing
all right,
YouTube.
Would y'all like to move on now, or do I need to spike the football the entirety of the show?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you'll remind
You'll
us.
find ways. You'll find ways to do it.
Because there's a certain school in the Big 12 that employs S.J. Tui, and it's their first year in the Big 12.
Good segue.
So the AP Top 25 came out today. We have a new an AP poll for this year. No surprise, Georgia, who has won the last 2 national titles, is number 1. They did not get all 63 number 1 votes. 2 other teams got number 1 votes. Michigan is number 2. They got 2 number 1 votes, and Ohio State. I don't care that Michigan's number 1. Or number 2. That's fine. Whatever. Who's voting number 1 over Georgia?
People in Michigan.
I saw it a moment ago.
They both have to be Michigan people.
Ohio State is the number 3 team in the country. They got 1 first place vote.
Actually, no, it's an A&M person. An A&M, Robert
Cessna
has Ohio State number 1, Georgia 2. An Alabama person, Reese Davis has Michigan number 1.
Oh.
Kirk Bowles, Texas has Michigan 1, and the rest are Georgia.
Okay. Alabama is number 4. LSU is number 5. USC 6. Penn State number 7. Florida State 8. Clemson 9. Washington 10. That's your top 10. Followed by Texas at 11. Perpetually, they're just going to be between 15 and 10 every year. Tennessee is number 12. Notre Dame number 13. Utah 14. Oregon 15. Kansas State 16. TCU, fresh off a national title game appearance, 17th. Oregon State 18th. Wisconsin 19th. Oklahoma, losing record last year, their preseason top 25, number 20. North Carolina, number 21. Ole Miss, lost 5 of their last 6 games. They are number 22. Texas A&M, losing record last year, 5 games, still number 23. Tulane, number 24, and Iowa, 25. Texas Tech, South Carolina, UCLA, UTSA, and Arkansas are your next 5 as far as receiving votes goes. I'm sorry, Casey, I hate to do it, but I mean, A&M at 23 is ridiculous.
Why do you hate to do it? You're telling the truth. I Because of
the
recruiting class. Trust me, and I'm not saying this as a fan that's like, oh, I'd rather be unranked because
that's
like,
me.
like, oh, I'd rather be unranked because they're doubting us. Like, no, we deserve to be unranked. What are people doing? That's where I'm coming from. Don't be sorry. They have no business being ranked.
I think Oklahoma at 20 is ridiculous. I don't know how you can only see 19 better teams than them after what they showed last year. I think Tennessee at 12 might be a little high. I mean, it was one great year. And I don't know. 12 seems a little high. Of course, Texas, who I believe in fully, at 11 is kind of ridiculous as well. And I think LSU at 5 is high. I don't think they're the 5th best team in the country. I think people are seeing the good things out of them last year and ignoring the bad things, and I've said that a lot.
I would flip LSU and Clemson. I think LSU should have that Clemson ranking. I don't think TCU is a top 25 team right now, but I understand why they're in the poll. Texas, I think, is a little bit fair where they are. And then,
to be honest, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Past like 13 or 14, it's all a crapshoot. TCU, like you said, I don't know if they're a top 25 team at this point. Oklahoma, of course, I've already said. North Carolina has problems. Ole Miss lost 5 of their last 6 games. Texas A&M. Like, there's a lot in that second half of the top 25 that's just kind of questionable.
And that's why we make fun of this poll every single year. We have to have them, and then when they come out, we talk about them because it means the season's starting, so that's exciting. But we're going to look back at this the beginning of October and just be like, what the hell was this? And we'll make fun of it time and time again. Another reason why projections and rankings should not come out until October at the earliest. Early.
I would hate that though. I
would hate it too. But when the college football playoff rankings come out, like that's when we actually know what's going on in the season. We need the AP poll so we can talk about it.
One for prediction.
In the last 30 years, 28 times, all but 2011 and I believe 2020. In the last 30 years, an unranked team has finished in the AP top 10. Last 30 years, it's happened 28 times. Well, actually, it's happened more than that because it happened 4 times last year. 4 unranked teams finished top 10 last year: Washington, Tennessee, Penn State, and somebody else. Anyway, here's your unranked teams. You tell me which one you think could finish in the top 10. Texas Tech, South Carolina, UCLA, UTSA, Arkansas, Boise State, Pittsburgh, Kentucky, Louisville, Troy, Kansas, Auburn, Minnesota, Toledo, Duke, Mississippi State, Florida, Illinois, Baylor, Coastal Carolina, South Alabama, NC State, James Madison, and Liberty. Those are the ones that got votes. And I'm sure there's more unranked teams. Anybody stand out there if anybody's going to finish top 10?
That's a really tough. Like, I could see a world where UTSA has a phenomenal year. They should be really
Kentucky
good.
sticks out to me because I don't think the East is all that good, and the second spot in the East, I believe, is up for grabs. And
maybe Louisville, maybe
is
but
UCF
the hype?
is UCF getting any votes?
UCF got 0 votes as far as I can tell.
That's very interesting because I think UCF's like low-key's one of the best teams in the Big 12. Like, I think they could have a better.
We're going to talk about them a lot.
Yeah, I think they could have a better. We'll get into them, but I think UCF would be a pick for me. UTSA.
If depending on when
Frank
Spencer Rattler shows up, I think South Carolina could be there. Big if on that.
I think they I'm so low on South Carolina. No offense to the Gamecocks.
I have almost the reverse question. I was predicting that I think 21 seasons, a top 10 team to start the year has finished unranked. Of the top 10 teams this year, who do you think is going to be the unranked one?
Well, I tell you what.
Uh-oh.
I truly think LSU is not nearly as good as they're made out to be, and I think the West is very competitive. I don't know if unranked is fair, but I could see them not finishing anywhere near the top 10.
I could see Washington really having a tough year. I
would say Washington or USC. One of them could fall apart.
Washington is.
I don't think USC would be unranked.
If they could, like, I mean,
I guess depending
if the
on
defense falls. Well,
but having Caleb Williams,
and they do have a good bet. Like, if Caleb gets hurt, Malachi's like as talented as they come.
I mean, there's
no one out there.
Florida State.
Yeah, I was going to say Florida State because their schedule early is awful.
Like, I mean, I know how we obviously on the last episode talked about the ACC, and you, me, and Katie all said Florida State's going to win the ACC. But would it surprise me if it went the opposite way and they fell completely apart? Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right, Katie, you got any other news for us before we dive into the Big 12?
Nope. The Harbaugh. Actually, so Harbaugh basically, I think, is going to continue to fight the suspension. So it's going to lead into 2024, which, just look at this schedule. It's dumb. I feel like you should take the suspension when you have the cupcake games. But there's a few people have suspicion that this is kind of a little preview to show that he might not be at Michigan, that he's already comfortable chucking it down the road.
People have been talking like.
I mean, it happens every year.
Yeah, I know.
But if Jim
not against
Harbaugh,
what you're saying, that's a great point. But like, how many times has Jim Harbaugh gone in the NFL?
Oh, and he takes calls every
offseason.
year. But wouldn't it be funny though if he did know somehow he already knew he was gone and he's just kicking that can down the road like, I don't know, suspend me for hamburgers in 2025. What do I care?
Yeah,
I can already tell you that me and Michigan fans are going to be going round and round all year.
Oh, I can imagine.
I put out my top 10 quarterbacks last week, and they were just beside themselves at J.J. McCarthy, who's just an average as hell quarterback.
He's not average.
I completely we can say
You're
that.
right. If it's anything, he's below average.
See, this is what when we talked
about
when we did the most disrespected players, and I brought up J.J. McCarthy, you were like, I think he's a good quarterback. Now you're walking it back again?
No. That's not what I said. I believe I said I think he gets more than enough respect. That's what I think I said.
I feel like
he ranked 15th or 16th last year in QBR, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I think he was 65th in accuracy. I believe he was 50th in yards. I think he was 40th in
like these are all just like those are fake stats. Like those don't matter.
Accuracy is very much not a fake stat.
I don't understand.
Accuracy in college football, accuracy is like, yeah, you throw a bunch of screens. Congratulations. Like
he had 8 Big Ten games. He threw over 200 yards, which is not a lot of yards, 5 times. I'm sorry, 3 times. 5 times he was under 200 yards. That's nothing. And I know they run the ball, and I know they don't use him all that much. He had one incredible game last year that was against Ohio State. He went and single-handedly lost the TCU game. So we'll have the Michigan discussion when it's time to have it. I'm just saying that's going to be a theme of this year.
The Big Ten preview episode, I'm very glad is going to be in person with you because I have a feeling that there are going to be some fantastic clips coming out of it.
And listen, Michigan's good, like really good. I feel like they're going to be in the playoff, but I don't think quarterback is a strength for them. I don't
think that it has to be. But we can talk about this for the Big Ten.
You're right. He don't have to be, but don't act like he's a top 10 quarterback when he's not.
Okay, that's fair. I mean,
That
I
is
think
fair.
there may be 10 quarterbacks better than JJ. I agree with that.
There's 25 quarterbacks better than JJ.
Then now we're getting a little bit
Twen-
further down the road, but let's save that for the Big Ten.
Yeah, we'll save that for the Big Ten. Before we get to the Big 12 preview.
I love the debate, so it's
I know,
great.
it's great. Oh, it's going to be
great. Like,
and
this is great.
You know, we have the reoccurring themes on this podcast, and Michigan's been one, so we'll get to that. But before we get to the Big 12, which we are doing today, Brandon, are you still eating Factor in Chicago, or have you re-upped your subscription, or where are we at?
Have you noticed that I've lost a little weight?
Yes, you look great.
No, I haven't seen you in
Well,
person,
I had
but
COVID
you do
for
look
a
great.
week and a half, and I couldn't eat. So, but that's what happened last time when I got COVID in 2021. I came out of it, started working out, and so maybe I'll do it again. But Factor is, first of all, it's delicious, but it's also healthy, and it's wonderful, and it's easy. Factor is everything you need it to be.
It's so easy. Today I had the spinach artichoke grilled chicken with zucchini. Of course, I put hot sauce on it because I swim in
That's
hot
a lot
sauce.
of green in it. That's a lot of green in a meal.
I like a lot of green. I'm the weirdo that likes the green juice. So I do love all Factors, but I especially like the ones with the great vegetables on the side because, like Brandon said, it's delicious. It only takes 2 minutes to heat up. It's like chef cooked. You get it right to your door, your apartment, your house, wherever. And you get to refresh your healthy habits, Brandon. So maybe you need to refresh your healthy habits. You need an extra boost to support wellness. You have the protein. You can get the Protein Plus. They've got keto. They've got Calorie Smart. They've got vegetarian. And this August, you can get Factor and enjoy eating without all the hassle. I can't tell you how awesome it is that every week you can go and pick from a different menu. And it's not the same menu every week. So you're not getting the same 4, 6, 8 meals. Every single week you get to go and pick what you want and what you're feeling. That week it's 34 plus flavor-packed, dietitian-approved meals ready in 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/Walker50 and use the code Walker50 and you get 50% off. Again, use the URL factormeals.com/Walker50 and the code Walker50 and you get 50% off. I love Factor. Katie, do you still eat Factor?
Oh, I love it.
It's the best.
Great.
I eat it all the time.
I am so excited for the Big 12. Like, there's so many teams I hate in this conference. I think they're all.
How the hell do we have SJ2 on Barstool Radio?
No, I'm with you. When I heard that happen, I was just, why?
Shout out to Kevin for getting somebody who's in the story of the day. Like, I understand that, and it took effort. I get that, but like, he's not even one of the people named in the lawsuit.
It also, I don't think, would probably take that much effort because he is a big Barstool guy. They probably just like slid in his DMs and he was like, "Sure, I'll do whatever."
He was the connection that got Dave into Disney through Mincy. And I will say, the second this came out and I realized Mincy's best friend he's not involved in it, but he is. I mean, he's making himself involved. I was just like, only a story like this would involve the Barstool universe that much. This is just like the deal with the quote unquote devil.
Has Mincy still not said anything?
He says he's like, I'm waiting to see what they say to make a statement.
And he was like, I support my friend SJ too.
Oh God.
I will say there's some bad teams in this conference.
I
don't
and
I
claim
think a lot of them stink.
I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-oh. For people that are listening, which is a lot of you, he's calling Ben Mintz.
What's up, Brandon?
Hey, Mintz, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. Like, all I want in my life is peace and quiet, and it doesn't seem like that ever really follows me around.
Well, Mintz, listen, I'm not one that wants to.
Am I being recorded right now? Is this content?
No, yeah, you are. Yeah, well, here's the thing, Mintz. I noticed you've been silent when we found out that the Tuohys were just allegedly just gigantic pieces of shit. Your thoughts?
Look, I don't know anything about any legal related stuff, and I obviously don't, what they're being accused of does not look the best, but we also, I'm not, in this day and age, I'm not condemning anybody off an ESPN article. That's for sure. And I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let the facts play out.
Yeah.
Instead of just jumping down everybody's throat like our society does now in every situation, anytime there's a chance.
Well, let me tell you something.
Okay with if that's what they did, that's not okay.
Let me tell you something.
I'm going to let it play out.
I'm not going to let it play out, and I'm not going to wait for the facts, and I'm going to dive headfirst into this thing.
Why don't you call SJ himself? He'll talk to you now. He called you out on Barstool Radio.
He called me out on Barstool Radio.
Yeah.
Why's he worried about me? His parents are going to prison.
Look, look, like I said, I can't, I just, no matter what I say, it's going to be used against me here, so I'm not going to say a lot. But
Okay. Well,
all I can say, look, I'll say this: SJ's been a great friend of mine.
I bet.
Jay's Disney guy.
Sure.
But,
I feel like Vince is just back in my life right now. It feels like he's right across from me.
I don't care about him. I just wanted to talk to you. Welcome back to the company, buddy.
And welcome back, right into, thought we'd have a little peaceful Monday.
Yeah. Super. All right.
So mean. He just hung up.
I will say, Brandon said, "Hey, Mincy," and then Mincy just was like, "I've been waiting to talk to somebody all day."
All right.
First of all, no, hold on. Do we know what SJ said about Brandon on Barstool Radio? Or are we just going to gloss over that?
What did he say?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. When he said he called him out on Barstool Radio.
I heard that he also, SJ said something about that Michael may have, he's been in contact with the family. I'm trying to get exact quotes because I don't want to misquote him.
Yeah, same.
Okay, well, if somebody can
there was
get a
something
quote of
about
what he said
he's been trying to get some money for a little bit. But this comes from Stooley's Clubhouse, who, I mean, you never know.
I just want to know what he said about Brandon.
I got a yes, but joking at the beginning.
Okay, so then we have to hear the context.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Big 12, Brandon. Uh-oh.
Well, I'd love to take the Tuies down. Shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't want to be too graphic, but it moved a little, not much.
Oh.
This would be such a victory for him.
I love that it took Katie a second to realize it, and again, you can't see her face, but it was just. I mean, like in a cartoon, her face was just colored completely green.
I did see. Well, they saw it.
No, I'm saying Brandon can't see it.
We'll clip that when she was like.
Everybody has their personal vendettas, and especially at this company, you get to air them out publicly because that's what we do for a living. I will tell you, Brandon, I'm very happy for you and for our podcast that one of your personal vendettas is coming true. It's like basically you need a bottle of Ace of Spades with the Tuies name on it, like a la Dave Portnoy.
Hold on. There's nothing personal about my vendetta against Ole Miss or the Tuies or anybody involved. They're simply right and wrong. That's all there is. And for years and years, I've been perched on the side of right, which is where I always am and which is where I'll always be. And the other side is full of horse shit, bullshit, all kind of shit. And I'm just going to let them do their shit, okay? Because at the end of the day, Brandon Walker was right.
Do you think Michael Orr will DM you again?
Let me tell you something. If Michael Orr isn't on this podcast as my personal guest in the next week, I have failed as a human being.
Have you DM'd him?
Have I DM'd him?
How fast did you slide in his DMs when you saw this article?
Like Ricky Henderson in 1988.
You didn't even read the article. You just saw the headline and went straight into the DMs.
124 or something that
Confirmed.
Well, he had 130 in 1980, but in 1988 he was still going pretty good, and he could slide.
Okay.
So, did you read it?
Who's that guy now? I was like Trey Turner sliding into home.
But I really do want to know, did you read the whole article before you did it, or did you see the headlines and not even worry about the details, just went straight in?
Oh, my TikTok, I had 15 pieces of content done before I got done with the headline.
What was the other 14?
You know what, Katie? I had to come do this show. How about that?
That was 2 hours ago. 3.
All right.
You walked right into that one. The Big 12, huh?
The Big 12. I got to go ahead and say it right now because I know Jack disagrees and Casey probably disagrees too. Last year, we were all victimized as a college football country by having to watch TCU play for a national title, despite the fact that TCU was not a good football team. They were a 7-5 SEC team, a 7-5 Big Ten team that happened to play in a league that fucking sucked last year. And every game was close. Every game was tight. So we acted like, oh my God, look at all the parity in the Big 12. But those teams sucked. This was a bad league last year. Kansas State won it. They won the league. In non-conference, they lost to Tulane. They got beat by 100 to Alabama. That's your champion. And then TCU doesn't win the league. They end up winning. They go 12-0 in the regular season, and then they get beat 65-7. This was a bad league. Will it get better? I think it's up to Texas and Oklahoma, the guys that recruited at a high level, to save this league this year. And maybe they'll put together the pieces later on. But right now, I still don't know if it's a good league. But I think Texas has to save it. Jack, your thoughts on me calling this a bad fucking league?
I just would disagree with calling it a bad league because they didn't have the top of the top. You're right. But that was a very crunched league from 1 through, I would say, 12, which was, or no, 10 last year. There was 10 teams last year. I would say the league was like ranked pretty much 10th best team in the country to pretty much 40th, 5th. Like, you didn't really have a lot of bad teams. I mean, like, who came in last year in that league?
West Virginia.
That was a bad team.
But that crunch
They were
league
bad.
gave us a national title participant that shouldn't have been anywhere.
But
No,
it-
you are right.
That you're right, but that's just the way that the cookie crumbles when it comes to the way
Because
the
you
playoff
even
is
look
put out
at the
there right
team
now.
the league this year. I would say this is especially with Texas and Oklahoma and the additions, this is a very good league.
I don't know if it's a very good league.
It's
I think
entertaining.
Texas has to carry it. If it's going to be a very good league, Texas is going to have to carry it this year.
What would
That's
you
I
say
think.
Vanderbilt would go in this league?
They would
Last
still be
year's
bottom.
Vanderbilt?
Yeah,
They
or
would still be at the
I
bottom.
don't know that they'd necessarily be bottom. This year, I think Vanderbilt's probably better than Cincinnati, probably better than Houston, probably better than West Virginia.
no.
They are
These
Better
are
than
bad
Houston?
teams. Cincinnati and Houston are bad.
Vanderbilt
Houston's bad.
is so bad. They're going
Cincinnati's
to be awful. No, none of those teams. All those teams are going to be bad in the Big 12, but they're not going to be like they would kill Vanderbilt. You are the biggest Vanderbilt fan I've ever met in my life.
I'm not a big Vanderbilt fan.
You are
I'm
too.
telling
You and I
these are
got
bad teams in the Big 12.
I got into it so big. I don't know where I agree or how much I agree with Jack or you in this argument right now. We'll get to it, but I will say you were a big Vandy stan last year because you made fun of me for picking Tennessee to beat Vanderbilt last year. They beat them by 30.
First of all, they beat him by 50. I don't remember. I was never a Vanderbilt stan. He's asked the question, or one of you asked the question: would Vanderbilt do well in this league? Yeah, I think they do okay. I mean, they do a lot better than they do in the SEC.
Well, that is true, but that's because the
Right.
SEC is the top
What
of
are
the
we
line.
talking about?
Jack just walked out, by the way.
I also just think that Vanderbilt, like, iron sharpens iron. Like, they've seen,
They're
they've
just
played
so
the Bamas,
bad.
they've played the Georgias. They're exposed to more things.
I just think
the Big
I
12
think-
this year we've got Oklahoma and Texas that are out the door going to the SEC. Now we've got the 4 newcomers that are coming in from G5. And I just feel like the league as a whole is just such a big question mark, and we'll get into the preview. But it's such a hard league to even try to understand because we don't know what these 4 teams are going to look like in the Big 12. And we also know that 2 of these teams are on their way out. And they should be the most talented every single year. One team.
That's why I think Texas has to be good this year, and we say it every year on Texas. But if they don't win this league this year,
Well, I mean, they're
I just don't know when it's ever going to happen.
I'm starting
for
to
them
drink the
as far as
Kool-Aid on
winning
that.
anything.
when we had Gabe Eichert on, and Oklahoma fans were very mad that I believe I was the one that said it multiple times, but this has nothing to do with the way that my team entered the SEC or the way that I feel like these teams will participate and compete in the SEC because of where I went to school. It is so hard to take, and whether Big 12 fans want to actually admit it or not, we know that the SEC is a better conference than the Big 12. That's just a fact. Top to bottom, that goes to the point about would Vanderbilt be bottom of the Big 12? Probably not. However, if you are an Oklahoma fan or you are a Texas fan and you're looking at if you can win a conference title, you have to do it this year because you are going to take the step into another conference that is just a better competitive playing field. That's just a fact. I'm not saying they're not going to have success in the SEC, but it's not going to happen right away. And if you want to win a conference title, win it in the Big 12 in your last year.
Texas is about to go from playing Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor every year to playing Alabama, LSU, to playing top 5 recruiters on a weekly basis. Like that sucks.
Well, Brandon, be careful because the idiots on Twitter or whoever that if they can get to you, they'll say this. Well, of course a Mississippi State fan's going to say that. Of course an A&M fan's going to say that. You guys suck in the SEC. You're not Boomer Sooner. You're not Hook 'em Horns. Well, it doesn't matter. Just look at the facts. The facts are you're going from playing those teams who have had some success. I'm not saying that they're absolute just schleps all the time, but going from playing them to playing the Georgia and the Alabama and the LSUs every single year is a daunting task. It doesn't matter who you are.
Let's start talking about the league this year. 14 teams in it because the Big 12 is allergic to having 12 teams. 14 teams, 2 are on the way out, 4 are on the way in. So that's about as much uncertainty as a conference can have. There will be some jockeying for position between the TCUs and the Oklahoma States of the world to see who's going to try to be the lead dog once Texas and Oklahoma leave. but I don't know if that is a factor this year. When it comes down to this conference, I do think that Texas is going to be very good. I think they're loaded. My biggest question mark team comes down to Oklahoma. Everybody assumes they're going to be better. Why? I think it's a dangerous assumption. People just think, oh, they're better than this, they're better than that. No, Brent Venables wasn't very good last year. What's the rule that says he's automatically going to be good this year?
I think there's a difference in them being a really good team and being better, because it's almost hard for me to fathom having the talent that they did and losing the way they did to Texas 2 years in a row. Does that mean that they're going to go and win the conference? I don't think so. But it's very clear to me that the talent is there. Dylan Gabriel, hopefully he can stay healthy. He's back. Brent Venables is a good defensive coordinator. We know that, so he can get their defense back on track. We'll see what he can do as a head coach. But it's hard for me to fathom that he would not be better than he was last year.
All right. Now, I'll start by giving I'll just go through the 14 teams, and I'll give you some perspective going into this year, some thoughts, and you can weigh in wherever you'd like. I start at the back of the league and go forward. West Virginia. Is Neil Brown fired yet? Is my phrase I've come up with him. This is a bad football team with a fired coach. And I don't even think he's on the hot seat. I think he's just fired and hasn't found out yet. Like there's no excitement for him in that program. That state doesn't like him. It's just a matter of time before he's no longer their coach. They got the Huggins thing hanging over him right now. So it's not a great time in West Virginia, which makes me sad because I love this program. This program should have a great quarterback and should be scoring 50 points a game. Now, that's what I feel like. They've got a great history of quarterbacks. This year, I don't think they're that bad. I think they're mediocre, but I don't think they're the worst team in the league. Bunch of defensive transfers, a decent experience. Garrett Green's a quarterback, all new wide receivers. C.J. Donaldson is a very good running back who didn't get enough opportunity last year. I think he's going to be a stud this year. Their schedule isn't great. They open with at Penn State, which is a probable loss, and then they have Pitt in week 3 at home. That's their big game. If they can beat Pitt, okay, we can talk. But if they can't, they're 1-2 heading into the Big 12, and they start off with Texas Tech at TCU. So that might be 2 losses. West Virginia, to me, bad, but not the worst team in this league.
They're bad. I know that their offensive line is pretty experienced, but I mean, what you said about Neil Brown is the biggest storyline to me. If obviously they're going to fire him as soon as there's any trouble. There's going to be trouble right off the bat. They're going to lose. Like I think he's fired before the end of September. I do not believe that Neil Brown is still coaching at West Virginia in October. So that to me says that even if their talent is there, West Virginia is going to have a really shitty year. Because if we're predicting the head coach to be fired, that's a bad team.
Cincinnati, forget everything you knew about Cincinnati under Luke Fickell. Pretty much all the personnel is new. There's not a whole lot here that isn't new. Emory Jones is their quarterback, which that's disgusting. Scott Satterfield, this is one of the weirdest hires I've ever seen. He failed at Louisville, which is an objectively easier job than Cincinnati, but he failed at Louisville. He couldn't get the job done at Louisville. Why did Cincinnati say that guy that failed there, which is an easier place to win than here, why is he going to work here? I don't know why they hired him. Defense, 3 starters back. Dante Corleone is good, but not a whole lot on defense. They also have at Pitt in week 2. Their first Big 12 game is Oklahoma at home. You'll notice 3 of these 4 new teams got big home games to start their Big 12 tenure. But their last few games at Houston, at West Virginia, Kansas might tell the tale of this team. I think this is the worst team in the Big 12.
They have 21. I don't think they're the worst team in the Big 12, but the 21 transfers in their offense. I think they're going to have 4, 6, 8 transfers starting on the off. This is transfer U.
And 1 UConn.
Defense. Yeah, I know. They on defense, they do have to, like, those guys on the D line are pretty good. Jawan Briggs, Dante Corleone, great name. Both all AAC last year. I think this team's – the only thing is I don't believe in Scott Satterfield, so it kind of knocks them down a little bit. I think they'll be bottom of the league, but I don't think they're worse. Like, I think they're a much better team than West Virginia.
It's also interesting that –
and Iowa State's going to be bad.
That too.
I just don't know how you think they're better than West Virginia. All right, here's their Big 12 schedule. Oklahoma at BYU, Iowa State, Baylor. That's 3 of the first 4 games are home. Then they got at Oak State, UCF, at Houston, at West Virginia, and Kansas. You know, they missed Texas. They missed Texas Tech, so it's like they don't
Miss
Their
Kansas
schedule's
State.
pretty friendly, but I just think they're going to be really shitty.
I think
And
they're going to
Scott,
be really, really shitty too.
Again, if all the transfers were in there and Luke Fickell was the coach, I would believe one way. But Scott Satterfield failed at Louisville.
And
I don't. He's not good.
He's not good. There was all of that weird stuff with him too. But then also, you're going into. We talked about jumping from the Big 12 to the SEC. You're going into a new conference, a new head coach that doesn't seem to be a very good coach at all. A new quarterback, a transfer quarterback who's not very good at all, into a new conference that has some pretty talented teams is a recipe for disaster.
And they have one returning start on offense. What's also interesting, Scott Satterfield is a head coach. His teams will average 200 plus rushing yards a game. So it's also like, do they even expect Emory Jones to be able to throw decently?
He's going to have to if they're going to compete in the Big 12.
All right, the Houston Cougars. To me, the question here is, what is their identity? What do they even want to be? They've long thrown the ball for so much. Donovan Smith is their new quarterback. Clayton Tune is out. The wide receivers are good. You know, I think the transition comes at a bad time because this is a roster that's turning over. They don't have a lot of experience. This was going to be a tough year for them regardless, and they just happen to be going to a new league during a transition year for their roster. I don't think that's good. Of course, they like every other team in the country, has a Texas A&M transfer on defense. They opened with UTSA, who they beat 37-35 in a great game last year to open the season. Then they got at Rice. Their first Big 12 game is TCU at home, which will be huge for them. But their road schedule, they're going 0-4 on the road in the Big 12. They play at Texas Tech, at Kansas State, at Baylor, and at UCF. I think they're losing all 4 of those games. And then you've got Texas at home. You've got TCU at home. I think this is also one of the worst teams in the Big 12.
They have a little bit of spark to me. I mean, yes, I think that they're going to struggle. Their schedule is not great either because they faced the 3 top finishers in the Big 12 last year. But I like Dana Holgorsen, and I know that he's not some forever great coach, but I do like the experience he has. I like the what he's able to do with quarterbacks. What are you doing?
Shocker.
Here? Oh, the shocker. Yeah, but what?
That's their sign, their hand sign.
U of H is this?
Yeah.
I always forget that that's.
What in the hell are y'all doing?
Katie threw me off. I apologize. Katie threw me off. She's off camera. She threw me off. Whatever.
Sorry.
I like Dana Holgorsen. I think obviously not just from like a character standpoint. I think that he's very good with quarterbacks. I think that going into this new league is gonna be a struggle. But if I'm looking at Cincinnati and them coming into the new league with a transfer quarterback and a new head coach, it's completely different because I believe in Dana Holgorsen. So I don't think they're gonna be good.
Same.
I don't like last year. Like Dana Holgorsen, since he's gone to Houston, has just lost so many games he shouldn't have. Like every game,
true,
like
what happened to Tulane last year was what people were predicting to happen to Houston.
And they were saying that every year because his talent has always been good, especially for the AAC. And then Dana Holgorsen is just always he finds a way to win a game that he doesn't want to.
They had the worst defensive drop-off
But
ever.
then.
Yes, when I say I
went from
believe in him,
top 10.
They went from 6 total to 105th total defense last year.
I don't believe in him as to go win the league. I'm saying that I don't have his. I think that him with a new quarterback, a very talented transfer quarterback to mold, will be good. I still think Houston's going to be bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that they're going to be great in the Big 12, but I have way more faith in him than Scott Satterfield.
We'll see.
It's also
be interesting
for their schedule. 10 of the teams were bowl teams from last year.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule for sure.
I think they lose the first game to UTSA.
Sorry, more news on Michael Orr. It seems it's confirmed they're appointed conservators.
I don't know what she said.
Michael Orr, the conservativeship was confirmed, it looks like.
Okay. Iowa State. My phrase here is what went wrong. In the early days of this podcast, they were one of the it teams where Matt Campbell was one of the it names. Now he's just a guy. There's nothing special about him. There's nothing special about this team. It might be one of the most boring teams in the world. They got quarterback issues. I mean, their quarterback gambling on some game. Who's going to play quarterback?
He's not in
for
fall
him?
camp. He's officially pulled out too.
They couldn't score. Okay, they couldn't score. She broke my rhythm.
Just keep going. Let her roll.
Okay. All right. They do bring back 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, and their wide receivers and running backs are experienced, but they couldn't score last year. This was under 20 points a game. They've had a top 3 defense in the Big 12 6 years in a row. It will be tough this year because they lost so much, but they're just gross. They're just boring. There's nothing sexy about this team. They open with Northern Illinois. They got Iowa at home, which is the annual Cy-Hawk game, which is an affront to football everywhere. They got at Ohio, Oklahoma State, at Oklahoma, TCU, at Cincinnati, at Baylor, Kansas, at BYU, Texas, and at K-State. I think, like Jack said, this is another contender for a worst team in the Big 12.
This team, especially losing their top running back and quarterback to the betting scandal, is bad. Like, I mean, I think there's a chance it's just I think Matt Campbell's a good coach. He'll be able to find a way to figure it out. I think they could even start the season 4-0. It's not crazy to say that. But after that, it's going to be tough. Like, I mean, they could get to 5 wins. Like, can they get to a bowl? I don't know. But their roster strength is it took a real hit recently, too, thanks to this scandal.
Matt Campbell is one of those guys that you look back at and you say you should strike while the iron is hot, because he was not only the head coach, I mean, every single head coaching job.
He said no to an interview with the Jets. Fuck you, buddy.
Like, the openings, every single time, it was like Matt Campbell, Matt Campbell, Matt Campbell. And even then, it was like, well, are we really going to take the guy from Iowa State and say he can coach in the NFL? But, buddy, he lost out on millions of dollars. And whether he would have had success with the Jets or whoever else, we don't know. But it's trending downward for him. And even if they have a decent season, it'll never be what it was before. And he just absolutely missed the boat to get a better job. He'll probably never get a better job.
I think they're going to be a bad football team. BYU is trotting out a quarterback zombie, a transfer zombie, which is what the portal has led to for a couple of guys. Guys like JT Daniels, who just keep going down the ladder, and just keep landing at different teams every year. Keaton Slovis is now at BYU, and they probably think they can fix him, right? They probably think, even though he had the chance at USC, he wasn't very good. He went to Pitt, he wasn't very good, and he's probably not going to be very good at BYU. And I don't even know what BYU is trying to be. Like, their offensive line is going to be good. They got transfer at running back. They were 43rd in scoring offense last year, which if you're getting into the Big 12 as a new team, you're going to need to be better than that. Their defense was god-awful. 13 games last year, they had 11.5 sacks. That's terrible. That's embarrassing. They got to improve that. But I think this is a mediocre team, not awful. I just think this team is just kind of there now, BYU is, and I don't even know how they get momentum going forward, because they don't recruit out of the same pool as everybody else. I don't know. BYU is just like a floating ship right now, and the engine's not on.
Of all the new teams going into the Big 12, that's the BYU is just kind of like the most meh to me. Not because I don't think they're going to be really bad. I don't think they're going to be really good in the Big 12. They're just kind of just meh. And we'll see. I could, eat those words halfway through the season, but it's just like they just kind of seem like the team I could care less the most about.
All right, Kansas. Kansas is going to be one of the most exciting teams in college football. Kansas is going to score a lot of points. They're going to light up scoreboards, and they might be terrible on defense again. Last year, they gave up 36 points a game, one of the worst defenses in the country. They were awful. They were bottom 10 in defense, but their offense was exciting. Jalen Daniels and Bean last year was good. Devin Neal's a good running back. Like, they're going to score a lot of points. I just don't know if they're going to improve enough on defense to really matter. I hope so, because I think Kansas and the story with Lance Leipold is fantastic. They open with Missouri State, Illinois, at Nevada, BYU. I mean, they can start 4-0, no problem. And then they got at Texas, UCF, at Oak State, OU. Their season comes down to a 4-game stretch late. OU, at Iowa State, Texas Tech, Kansas State. They play 3 of the top 4 teams in the league, all at home in a 4-week stretch. If they win 2 of those games, this is a hell of a year for Kansas.
I think that the bigger thing for Kansas is not how good they can be. It's if Lance Leipold can continue to build on making this program respectable again, because that's what he did. We all talked about how exciting it was last year. A healthy Jalen Daniels is going to be really fun to watch. And I don't think anybody that's actually telling the truth expects Kansas to be competing for the top of the Big 12 in 2023. But can they take that next step to being a better program and not the laughingstock? Because just 2 seasons ago, it was if you lost to Kansas, I mean, Texas did, you got made fun of, and he completely flipped the script last year. And so that to me is way more important for Kansas is, all right, just you don't even have to take some gigantic leap. Just continue to prove that last year wasn't a fluke and that Lance Leipold's a really good coach. And I think Jalen Daniels is the guy to continue to do that at quarterback.
I think the key.
Jack, what do you think about Kansas?
I mean, they've brought back what? the most returning production on offense. Like
90+% top in Power 5.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's crazy. The entire offense, even the quarterback has more experience than a lot of starting quarterbacks within the Power 5. Defense is really of a concern. I think I look at pretty much teams pretty much 4 through 14 in this conference, almost the same. I would say there's a little bit of a bottom with West Virginia and BYU. But then, like, some of these, like, you could tell me Cincinnati finishes 5th in this league. You could tell me they finished 13th. You could tell me the same with Kansas. I think it's going to be a lot of how the cookie crumbles this year with this team. But Jalen Daniels, I mean, it's going to be the #1 over team ever. Like, they're going to have.
It's going to be awesome.
They're going to have 70. Their totals are going to be 75 every game.
Yeah, they're going to be in a lot of 51-49 games. A lot of it. I mean, they're a classic Big 12 team. If you think about Big 12 over the last 15 years, it's scoring a lot of points and giving up a lot of points.
It's also
UCF. The best newcomer in this league by far is UCF. It's not close. They're going to have a little bit of a Kansas problem, I think, because their offense is going to be really fucking good and their defense is going to be okay, I guess. But they're going to score. They're going to score a lot of points. They were top 10 in rushing offense last year. John Rice Plumlee, probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks coming into the season this year. The wide receiver position looks good. The new running back was a backup last year. He's pretty good. Their schedule sets up nice as long as they beat Boise in week 2. Schedule sets up really nice. They're the only newcomer that doesn't open the Big 12 slate with a home game. They got to go to Kansas State. Their first 4 games in the Big 12 are at K-State, Baylor at home, at Kansas, at Oklahoma. They got to at least go 2-2 in that stretch. 1-3 is a disaster, and 1-3 is possible. But I think they're set up to come in and be a solid 7, 8, 9-win team in year 1.
The schedule, though, is manageable because if you get past that stretch, even if you do go 2-2, you don't have to play Texas. You don't have to
November's pretty easy.
You don't have to play TCU. So of all the newcomers, not only do they look like they could have the most success, they also, I think, probably have the easiest schedule of the 4 newcomers in the Big 12 itself. The non-conference games, throw out the window. But not having to play Texas or TCU, depending on how you feel about TCU, is good. But to kind of front load that schedule, you're going to see what they look like pretty quickly. And then if they can sneak out a few wins there, I mean, you're looking at a team I think could surprise a lot of people.
Jack, I know you love UCF this year.
I love UCF. I am a big fan of them. I think they have a chance to be in the Big 12 championship game. John Reese Plumlee does leave a lot to be desired, though. There's some times when it's like you need him to make a pass and he can't do it. But, I mean, damn, this guy's what? He's like 24 now. He's been around. Like maybe he made some strides. And the defense, you're right. But the whole back 7 of this defense is pretty much transfers. 6 out of the 7 of them are transfers. Linebackers galore. I mean, this is pretty much Auburn of the Big 12 because Gus Malzahn took everybody. Will that be good enough? We'll see. I'm very interested to see this team. I mean, but that being said, it's like you brought all these SEC guys in, and there's a decent amount to be desired just from a talent perspective, but we'll see.
All right. Oklahoma State, my thing with them is where's the fun? This is a team that used to score a lot of points. It's a team that used to be really exciting, and now they don't really have that anymore. Like Alan Bowman's just a guy at quarterback. There's 2 stats out of Oklahoma State that I find amazing. First of all, Mike Gundy is famous for what speech? I'm a man, I'm 40. You realize his birthday was the other day? He turned 56. That was 16 years ago.
That makes me sad.
16 years ago.
I thought he was just 50. I thought it was 10 years ago. It makes me sad.
So I'm going to ask a question right now. Who can answer it? How many winning seasons do they have in a row at Oklahoma State under Gundy?
I think it's like 16. Is it 16?
17, actually.
You did read my sheet.
I didn't read. There are other magazines other than your sheet, Katie.
You should be saying you read it. Also, I took it away from you about a month ago, and you haven't realized.
Wait, how'd you take it away? You emailed it to me.
Nope, I unshared it.
She revoked access.
She revoked your privilege.
That's a thing, yeah. You know what she just did? You didn't even notice? She Jamarcus Russelled you, Oakland Raiders you. She sent you a tape.
I can't see her.
No, she sent a tape and was like, "Look at this blitz package for us." And then the next day they said, wait, how were the blitz packages? He was like, they were great. They do a lot of this. There was nothing on the tape.
Under Florida. So it's the sheets in alphabetical order. Under Florida, on the second line, I said, Brandon, when you see this, text me. 2 weeks, nothing. I sent it to someone who would read it.
I did read it.
I have a lot of sheets.
I read it.
You said you
I also
use
don't
it.
need you to tell me about Florida. Like, I know they're going to be mediocre. I don't have to check Florida.
You said you'd read it. You lied, so I gave it to someone who would. Okay, then back to not talking. Just had to add that in there.
Oklahoma State, their offense was bad last year. Defense was in the hundreds, and they're switching to the 3-3-5. I don't know. There's just nothing exciting about Oklahoma State at all, and I just wonder how much longer Gundy's going to go on there. Like, it feels like both Gundy and Oklahoma State would do well with a change of scenery.
I don't think it's going to happen, though, with him. I think that we've talked about the fact that he is so consistent. I mean, 17 straight winning seasons is incredible. And, there is a wide open opportunity with Oklahoma and Texas leaving. I don't believe it can be him because every single year it's the cliche. Oklahoma State's in the conversation and then they find some way to blow a game they shouldn't or lose in horrific fashion at the end of the game. And it's just, the way they lost the Big 12 a few years ago, it still is haunting. But this team also is returning. I think it's like 6 total starters. I think that's what Katie's sheet said.
Returning production's 108th in the country I'm seeing.
It's horrible.
They've lost everybody.
And they usually have that stigma around them. They can't just win that big game. So it seems like it's just, a complete disaster in the making for them. But if I'm Mike Gundy, I'm not leaving. I mean, why would you leave? He's not going to go get a better job. He's not going to ever get a better job. Oklahoma State's probably not going to move on from him unless when Texas and Oklahoma leaves and Oklahoma State doesn't really try to make a push for the top of the league right away, then I could see them being like, all right, dude, like we gave you a chance for 2 decades and you couldn't do it.
Their season will really be told. Those 2 games against Arizona State, which is away, which will be tough. I know they're in the first year under Dillingham, and then South Alabama at home. That's not an easy game either. We'll know a lot about Oklahoma State after the Arizona State, South Alabama, Iowa State run, and I know Oklahoma State fans are not going to like me saying this. There's a chance they go 0-3 in that. They could start the season 1-3.
Yeah, so I had their key slate or their key stretch as the 2 games after that. They open with at Iowa State, right, in the Big 12. Let's say they win that one. Their next 2 games, October 6th and October 14th, are Kansas State and at Kansas. They could go 0-2 against Kansas teams, and then they're behind the 8 ball immediately because you got Oklahoma later, you got UCF later, you got all these teams later. Like the Kansas teams they got to at least split the Kansas teams. If they don't, they're screwed.
This could be a disaster season in Oklahoma State, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're always good. This roster's depleted, and I'm going to throw it over to Kitty because I think she has something to say.
They're a hint at for the future. They're kind of my surprise team because I feel like Oklahoma State is those schools that when you don't talk about them, they somehow find a way. This is like very much a shot in the dark. Like every single stat, last 20 years, their last 2 defenses were the last 2 years. They have 100% fallen apart. Everything's gone wrong for some reason. No, again, I'm not going to bet on this. It's just a hunch. I had to pick a surprising team. I picked them. Something about Gundy, if he finds a way to just make it work, I will not be surprised.
I think he's also got a weird, petty. I mean, I guess it's not. I know he's got the chip on his shoulder about the Oklahoma stuff, and it's petty. I guess it's not really weird. It's like if you're the little brother left at the altar. But part of me says that some guys would use that as motivation and it work, and some guys use it as motivation and it's a distraction. And I kind of feel like Mike Gundy might be a distraction type of situation.
So right now we're in the middle of the Big 12, just with the teams that are just going to be average, like your 6-6 teams, your 7-5 teams. Coming out of that, I think Baylor is probably the exit point out of that group. Baylor could be average or they could be pretty good. I think Blake Shapen is pretty good. They got a big-time Arkansas transfer at receiver. The offensive line could be bad. They're bringing in a lot of defensive transfers because their defense ranked in the 60s and 70s last year, and that's Dave Aranda's better than that. They do have 8 home games, so they're in Waco a lot. I think this could be. If they finish 5-7, I wouldn't be shocked. If they finish 8-4, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think they're the very middle of the Big 12. Texas State, Utah is who they got early. Long Island and Texas. That's their first 4 games.
Long Island.
They opened the Big 12 with Texas and UCF on the road. And then they have Kansas State, TCU, 2 road games later, back to back. So I don't know. I think Baylor's just solid, but not anything to get excited about.
I know they love Blake Shapen, and I know he's got a lot of hype, but he was so inconsistent last year. And they were coming off of the Big 12 champion season, so I get that. And I like Dave Aranda, but I'm not sold on Blake Shapen yet. And Baylor fans are in your ass if you say that.
Hey, yo.
I almost said asshole, so at least I stopped there. No, but they get so mad when you say that. But like
right.
I'm just not sold on him. He was incredibly inconsistent, like I said. So I don't know. Baylor, you're right. Baylor's kind of in that we'll see 6-6 type of season.
They could find a way to really like have a high ceiling, but I'm with Blake Shapen. Just
goes up and down every year.
Blake Shapen's he just really is. I see the talent. I see why people like him, but it's going to fall a lot on him. And then the defense last year really took a step back. Ranked 70th in performance ranking and then 20th the year before. It wasn't the offense last year that took a step back. It was the defense, and that's not a great look for Dave Aranda.
No, it's not.
All right. Texas Tech is a team that has very high expectations internally. I look at their roster. I think they're going to be good, pretty good, but I don't know that I'm as excited about Texas Tech football as Texas Tech fans are. They believe that the new golden age is here and Joey McGuire is the guy, and he might be. I know Tyler Shuck is back at quarterback. He was injured last year, but he won all 5 starts that he had. So if he's healthy this year, look out. Taj Brooks is decent at running back. Their secondary is very experienced, but their defense was in the 90s last year. Like there wasn't a very good defense. Another classic Big 12 team. They're going to score a lot and they're going to give up a lot. But I don't know. I look at Texas Tech, and I guess this is probably there's a clear top 4 in the Big 12. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and TCU. Texas Tech is probably the next team, although Texas Tech fans believe they belong in the top group, and I don't know if I see it, Jack.
I don't see it in that group. I think they're in that group where I just said they could be at the top of the conference. They could be at the bottom. I don't think they're going to be at the bottom. They returned 35th most production. The defense is it's tough. That defense, you're right. That's their biggest concern. Tyler Show is it's another guy that is just like, what am I supposed to do with you? We'll see. I love Joey McGuire. I think he's been, and I don't blame Texas Tech fans, man. I mean, like, it's first time in a while. There's some real excitement. The Wells era was just, it wasn't a failure, but it just wasn't great. And
Cliff Kingsbury wasn't great.
Yeah, and like he even had like the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, and it wasn't great. He had also Baker too. We'll see with Texas Tech. I like when they're good. I mean, I guess that's probably the nostalgia in me because like my earliest memories are Michael Crabtree, Graham Harrell. Like you just keep saying on and on and on. But
Michael Crabtree is a nightmare.
But we'll see. This schedule is difficult because you draw Oregon out in and their first game of the season is away at Wyoming. That's tough. Elevation, like you don't know how bad.
Oregon though, they're so excited about Joey McGuire and they're so excited about the future. It's a perfectly scheduled game because it's at home. It's their home opener. Let's say they got to beat Wyoming on the road. If they lose to Wyoming, then it's a disaster. They're 1-0. They're coming home and they open with a top 10, 15 team. If they beat them, all of their hopes and dreams are right there in front of them. It's a perfectly scheduled game for them.
I know. Oh, 100%. I think it's a great scheduled game. And you got to take those chances. I'm excited. That's one of my, like, when we circle games, that game's going to be awesome, especially at night in Lubbock. I mean, geez, you can't. It's going to be electric.
You need to go to a game in Lubbock. I feel like you would have so much fun.
Lubbock.
I mean, it's crazy there. I think Joey McGuire is going to be one of those guys that I don't think it's going to be necessarily this year. Wouldn't surprise me if it was, but in the next few years, he's going to be one of the next guys to get a lot of calls from different.
They won
programs.
3 games in overtime last year. That's not to say luck, but you're playing close games.
Also, do you know where Tyler Show was before Texas Tech?
Oregon.
Oh yeah.
Tyler Show revenge game.
All right.
Tyler Show revenge game.
We've arrived at Oklahoma, and what I wrote down was, why can't they be bad again? I think they can absolutely be bad again. Everybody assumes they can't. Before we talk about Oklahoma this year, so the number 1 recruit in the On3 rankings, Williams Winery, has just committed to Missouri, and Oklahoma fans are not handling things very well. They are struggling with this one. They think this guy has just signed his life over to the devil, and he's never going to play football again. But it's hilarious to me that Oklahoma fans get all upset when a defensive player goes to Missouri. Like, Missouri's got just as good defensive players over the last 10 years as Oklahoma. Like, Oklahoma doesn't develop defensive players.
He's from St. Louis too, right?
He's from St. Louis, yeah.
That
So
makes
I mean,
sense.
it's like
I mean,
he's staying home and like,
good for Missouri for keeping him home.
Elijah Drinkwitz. I mean, even though we kind of, I was yelling at him in our episode
That's
before,
okay.
but
You can yell at whoever you want.
I will say Elijah Drinkwitz came a long way. I bet people are ratioing one of our old tweets where Elijah Drinkwitz celebrated a 3-star commit on National Signing Day at Mizzou a few years ago, and now he's signing number. Well, he hasn't been signed yet, so never mind. He has to sign on that dotted line.
So when it comes to Oklahoma this year, I look at them. Their defense ranked last year against the run 105th. Against the pass, they were 118th, and total defense was 121st. This is supposedly a defensive genius, and that's what he put on the field last year. They brought in a lot of transfers on defense, so they have to get better. But even if they got 50 spots better, that's still a mediocre defense. Offensively, this is why I don't believe in Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel, to me, is just a guy. He's going to put up decent numbers, but he's just a guy. And 10, 15, 25 years ago, Oklahoma, every year you can count on them having some of the best receivers in the country, the best running backs in the country. They don't have that anymore. Skill positions are just average. I know the Salchuk guy, they think is going to be very good at running back, but their receivers, their leading receiver coming back had 37 catches. The second leading receiver is Drake Stoops. Like, there's the skill talent they used to have is no longer here. So I could see them going 6-6 again and facing a very difficult decision on Brent Venables. Now the schedule is easy. We give Michigan a lot of shit for their non-conference schedule. Oklahoma's non-conference is Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa. That's embarrassing. That's really bad. Now, they did have the Georgia game scheduled, and the SEC said you can't play it, so I'll give them a pass on that. But they're at Cincy, Iowa State, Texas, UCF, at Kansas, at Oklahoma State, West Virginia, at BYU, TCU. It's a manageable. They missed Kansas State. Like it's a manageable schedule for them. I just think they might not be very good. I think Brent Venables might be a bad coach.
I think he might not be a good fit. We know that he was obviously good as a coordinator, but like I said earlier in the episode, and I'm going to double down on this, I do not think that they're going to be at the top of the Big 12. I don't have that spoiler. They're not in my title game. However, it is hard to believe they're going to be as bad as they were last year. That game in Dallas against Texas was so god awful. I mean, it was quite literally historically bad. I don't see that happening to them again. I don't. I think that they improve. I think Dylan Gabriel stays healthy.
Gets hurt again at Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If he stays healthy, it's going to improve, and I do think that you're going to see a little bit more excitement. However, on the flip side of that, these Oklahoma fans that are like, oh, it was just a bad year, he needed a second to get used to it, that's also crazy because there are coaches that come in that are immediate successes, and especially coaches that come in with a roster that he had to play at a program like Oklahoma. You cannot be that bad. You cannot do it. And if they do it again, he's done, period.
Right. I'm going to very quickly just gloss over the last three because they're all TCU. Even though they got embarrassed in the national title game, their roster's good. Quarterback Chandler Morris, like they should be pretty good. They took a lot of transfers in. I think they're a consensus top 3 team in the Big 12. Kansas State, the same. Defensively, they're going to have a lot of holes to fill. But this is year to year the toughest team in the Big 12. They're always going to bring it. They're well coached. And Will Howard might be a dude at quarterback. And then to me, Texas is flat out loaded. There's no excuse. They're loaded. They're the most loaded team in the Big 12. They got the quarterback. They got the receivers. This is a loaded team. If not now, then never.
I know we're going to talk about all 3 of these teams, but you said Will Howard might be a dude. I think Will Howard is a dude. I think he is very good. His
numbers were okay. And they won games with him. So he might be a dude. I'm not going to say he's a dude. He might be a dude.
I think that he is. I think that, let's just go ahead and get in our predictions because I feel like the more we talk, we're just going to talk ourselves into our predictions. And then,
all right, Katie, do you have the list?
I have the list. Katie probably also has the list, but the list for the graphic.
Yes. You have to say
somebody just give it to me? It doesn't have
yes.
to.
Okay, so the champion, the title game, the worst team, surprise team, disappointing team, coach of the year, best player.
All right, who is the worst team in the Big 12 this year, Jack?
West Virginia.
All right, Katie. No. Casey, who is the worst team in the Big 12?
Cincinnati, same reason I said. New head coach, new conference, bad quarterback, bad coach, disaster.
Katie, who's the worst team in the Big 12?
Houston, I think the regression is going to continue. They are not ready for a Power 5 schedule, and they've lost too many players to face the talent they're going to have to face.
I am going to double up on the graphic with Casey here. I believe Cincinnati is the worst team in the Big 12, with Iowa State a strong outside competitor there. Who is the give me another category?
Surprise team.
Who's the most disappointing team in the Big 12 this year? Casey Smith.
I'm going to say Oklahoma State. We don't have to go back through, but I think that the fact that they're not returning a bunch of guys and Mike Gundy just can't get over that hump. I think Oklahoma State fans are excited that Oklahoma's leaving, and I think that it is just going to be a disaster for them.
Yep.
Jack.
Oklahoma State.
Katie.
I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I think we know it's coming, but just with all the hype and what we've seen from them the past 2 years, just to see them downfall this bad, I also agree that they could be very bad too. I'm not gonna relish in the excitement. It's gonna suck to see them like this.
Without Luke Fickell.
Let's not write a sob story for Cincinnati. I will not care when they suck.
Okay.
I will not care when they suck. That's a tip.
They
deserve nothing. What do they deserve? They've won nothing in any sport.
I enjoy seeing new players on the field. Cincinnati had their ups, and now they're having their really bad come down.
All right. My disappointing team, say I won't do it. Say I won't do it. Say I won't do it.
Do it.
Do it.
It's the Oklahoma Sooners.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry. I think they're going to be bad again. I think they're going to be average again. I don't think magic is going to happen. I think Brent Venables is not that guy, and they're going to realize it at the end of the year. What's my next category?
Surprise team.
This one's tough with this league because I feel like every team is kind of slotted where they ought to be. I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears because Dave Aranda is good. He's a very good coach. He won the league a couple of years ago, and then he took a step back. I think he's too good to take 2 steps back. I think Baylor might slide through and get to that 9-win level. So I'm going to go Baylor.
I'm going to go with UCF.
Oh, Jack.
I'm also going with UCF.
Oh, nice.
I don't think that it's a surprise that they're going to be good if you've been paying attention to them, but I think there's a lot of people in the country that have not been paying attention to them and then in going into the Big 12. Sometimes I even forget there are 4 new teams. So I think UCF is going to be one of those teams you're like, oh, wow, they're good, and they're in the Big 12.
They also fall into the parachute theory, that basically all the Power 5 schools, the players who kind of, they're second string, knocking them playing time, they're going to want to move closer to home to get more playing time. A lot of people from Florida, UCF might reap the benefits, and I think in recruiting for the Big 12, they've not top half, like top quarter already.
Jack, I will say it is it's full circle here for me and you to have UCF as surprising teams together after our launched attack on them in 2018.
My surprise team is Oklahoma State. I'm not gonna bet it, but I think I'm interested. I'm gonna give Gundy the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to eat crow so bad on this, but fuck.
All right, next category.
Coach of the year.
I'll go first.
Go.
I think it's going to be Joey McGuire. And I don't think that it's going to be because they're winning, but I think it's because they're going to take that next step. I say winning. They're not going to win the conference. They're going to win. I think Texas Tech, especially that early schedule, I think he's going to make waves. I don't know. To me, Coach of the Year is never the guy that wins the conference. I don't think it's going to be him. I guess I'm going to eat crow on that, too, because of who I'm picking to win the conference. The guy should probably win Coach of the Year. But for some reason, I'm feeling like Joey McGuire might be there. They're excited about him.
I'm going to go with Steve Sarkisian. I think it's time for them to break through. I think and not only them, it's time for him to break through. His record as head coach is not very good, and he's never really had that big year. I think this is his big year. I think he finally breaks through. Jack?
I'm going to go with the Gus Bus, Gus Malzahn.
I agree. I feel most
Gus Bus.
I feel most strongly that it's going to be one of the 4 newcomers. It's going to be one of those coaches. It's going to get hey, you did your first year, you hit Power 5. That I feel most strongly about. Then of that, I also agree with Gus Malzahn.
I regret my pick, but I'm sticking with it. Fuck it.
Next category.
Player of the year. Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, same.
Oh, unanimous. Is that our first one this year?
So
unanimous?
Sorry, Quinn Ewers. You're not
We're
going to
have our. We're also going to have a unanimous conference champion.
Yeah, it appears so.
Sorry, Casey.
Wait, time out.
We can't all have
Time out. 20, give me a 20. Jack, I'm just talking to you right now, okay? Just me and you. Don't worry about anybody else. The one to your left always makes fun of us when we do horns up, and she always makes fun of us when we say Texas is back and Texas is this, and now she's going to sit here and she's going to be like Texas is back and Texas is everything. I'm talking to Jack, Casey. I'm talking to Jack.
I was really disappointed when you skipped past Texas when we were doing the previews because I just wanted to salivate about the roster and how it really could turn out to be a great team. Specifically, I mean, here's the thing. Quinn Ewers could be bad, could get injured. I'm still bullish on this team because that means Malik Murphy's right there, even Arch Manning. I'm so bullish on this team. I think they finally figured out the offensive line. The defense is the only thing I'm concerned about. I mean Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jatavion Sanders, and then finally Isaiah Nayer from Wyoming. He was supposed to play last year. He was supposed to play last year, but got injured in spring practice or maybe fall camp. This team, but I'm all in.
Beautiful scenery behind you guys.
All the reporters are also saying this is the first time they've seen Texas, I think, since like 08-09 have be fully stocked with the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I have something to say.
Yep.
I think Texas might be back. And I am not saying this because you're saying it or Jack has been saying it, and I'm not saying this as like some sort of reverse jinx. I truly believe that there is some cosmic force that for Texas this year, you've got Quinn Ewers, who I absolutely believe in, and I know he was up and down last year, but as the highest rated recruit ever. Then you got a guy named Arch Manning behind him, so just the last name. You got Steve Sarkisian, who is a very good coach, who's had trouble off the field, but is a good coach who hasn't proven it yet. And you have Texas, who has been the big boss in the Big 12 for all these years. They're now leaving that conference. There's just something about this perfect storm that says Texas is going to leave the Big 12, who they ran teams out with the Longhorn Network. They're going to leave on top. They're going to be the champions. They're going to win. And not just because of all this magic, because I do believe that they have a very talented team. And I know that last year is last year. Alabama was Alabama last year, but you kind of saw it start in week 2 last year when they barely lost to Alabama. There's just something about this team this year. Now, do I think they're going to repeat that, immediately go into the SEC and be champions? Absolutely not. But I truly believe in Texas in the Big 12 this year, and it hurts my heart to say it.
And to quantify what you said, their 5 losses, were by 7 or less points.
Mm-hmm. They were good last year, and
Okay.
They have A.D. Mitchell too from Georgia.
We're going Quinn Ewers across the board, and we're going Texas across the board.
Who are they beating in the conference title game?
I
got them beating Kansas State.
I said disappointing Oklahoma State. I almost put Kansas State. I think they may not be as good as everyone thinks, but they'll still be a good team. I'm going to put UCF in the championship game.
Wow. Bold.
I'm putting TCU.
Wow.
I know that Max Duggan is gone. I realize Lincoln Riley's gone. I hate Kendall Briles. We know this.
So interesting that nobody said TCU will be the most disappointing team.
That is, especially Brandon.
I think they're going to be good for. Also, wait, what is disappointing? I say if they're
I know.
between 7-8 wins,
I think they'll be what they should have been last year.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's,
8 or 9 win team.
Maybe I'm buying way too much into the fact that Chandler Morris was supposed to be the starter last year, and I know they had a lot of magic. We talked about this crazy amounts on the podcast. We don't need to rehash it, but I'm buying into that. I think that when you look at Oklahoma, I think that they are going to be disappointing in the fact they're not going to be up there. I like Kansas State. I like Will Howard, but I don't know. When you look at the way the rest of the Big 12 is shaking out, I think TCU is going to be there. They restocked. I know you have to also find somebody that's Quentin Johnston level, but I still think there's something with the Briles.
They're deep enough to find a good rotation.
They are. They don't have like the guy right now, but I like them. So I have TCU and Texas playing in the Big 12 championship and Texas winning.
The TCU is, I mean, if you look at their roster, they have JoJo Earl came in from Alabama, Trey Sanders from Alabama.
They have
JP
JP
Richardson
from Oklahoma State.
Five starters
Power
offensive.
5, receivers.
And they also their schedule is tough at the end, but you're looking at going
backloaded.
It's so backloaded, but they're going to be 7-0 going into Kansas State.
Yeah.
On
I will say
end of October.
we will learn a lot about them in that first game against Colorado. That's a very interesting game. One of the most interesting games of the year. First time we see Dion. TCU is pretty much a new team, but man, that Houston game, they have to beat Houston handedly.
And to go into the backloaded, October 21st at Kansas State, at Texas Tech, host Texas, host Baylor, then at Oklahoma.
Imagine
it's tough.
You got to be healthy.
Imagine they went 8-0 into that Texas game. They could go 8-0 into that Texas game and not really be that good, because
that's how their schedule lays out.
I mean, like, what? Tell me they can't go 8-0 in these games.
I mean, I said they're going to go
Colorado,
7-0 into
Nichols,
Kansas State.
Houston, SMU, West Virginia, Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State, Texas Tech.
Yes.
The only thing is Texas Tech and Kansas State are both away. That Texas Tech game on a Thursday night away on November 2nd, that's going to be a banger.
All right. I think that's pretty much everything, right?
Yes, it
I think
is.
so.
Good.
Do we think that the Big 12 team is going to make the playoff?
Yes,
you have
Texas
to
is
be-
making the playoff.
Well, they could. Yeah.
If Texas wins the Big 12, especially if they go undefeated or do what TCU did last year, they absolutely will be in it, because the College Football Playoff Committee will drool all over themselves.
It will be
to make
really
sure
interesting.
Texas is in.
They probably have to go undefeated in the Big 12, because
Yeah.
I mean they got to rub at Alabama, so they're going to have no margin for error unless they go beat Alabama, which then all bets are off. But if they lose to Alabama, they can't lose a Big 12 game, and you know, I didn't really look at the schedule that closely for Texas, but
Is there a line out for
Here,
Texas, Alabama? I got Rice, Bama, Wyoming, Baylor,
Kansas,
Oklahoma, Houston, BYU, Kansas State. I mean, it's a tough schedule.
TCU.
What do you think the line will be against Alabama? Anything over 10?
I think Alabama by a touchdown.
Yeah.
A touchdown said, like, I think that's perfect. I would love like 10, 11, 12 points.
You know, Brandon,
We don't know who's going to play quarterback for Alabama.
If Texas is even remotely on the bubble or in the conversation for the college football playoff, they're in because of who they are. And the storyline, the last year in the Big 12.
So if they go 10-12 regular, win the conference, you think they'll make it still?
Who's the loss?
Yeah,
in the
it depends. If they lose to Alabama and they win the
no,
Big
but
12.
what's 10-2? What's the
Yeah,
loss?
that's fair.
What's the other loss? 11-1 is the question. I think if they go 12-1, they finish.
12-1 with a close loss to Bama, they're definitely
they're in.
I think 12-1 doesn't matter who the losses to, they're in.
Yeah. Well, if they beat Alabama and they win the title, the conference,
but 12-1 is going to be 12-1.
If they beat Alabama and lose the Big 12 championship, but that's their only loss, I still think they're in.
As long as it's close. I mean, good game.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what TCU did last year. They went 12-0 and lost the Big 12, and they were still in.
Yeah, I mean.
All right. That's Unnecessary Roughness, and we'll be back, I guess, Thursday to talk Pac-12.